All right. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another day of SaberSim's DFS office hours. Today is Friday, April 12th of 2024. Looking ahead, we have a 12-game MLB main slate today. We have a 11-game NBA main slate. We have a 5-game NHL slate, and we have the cut sweat going on over in the golf/masters streets. So it should be a fun day of DFS. For those of you who are new here, welcome. My name is Andrew. I am one of the coaches over here at SaberSim. This is a show where we go over how to use the SaberSim app, answer any and all DFS related questions. You get your questions in one of three ways here. First off, send us an email, support@sabersim.com. Second, post it live in the YouTube chat. Third way, post it in the office hours channel in our Discord server. If you're not in our Discord and want to get access to that channel, there is a link in the description of this video. You also get access to our similar channels, individual sport channels, and you get access to the rest of the SaberSim team. So can't say enough good things about the Discord. But with that said, we do this show Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern, and we do this show on Saturdays at 11 a.m. Eastern. So I will be right back here tomorrow morning to answer some more questions. But with that said, going to get the app pulled up here. Just one quick question here so far from Zachary to get us started. So going to knock this one out. Zachary said, does SaberSim do live scoring for all sports like they are doing for the Masters? Could I tune into a NASCAR race and see what my projected ROI is mid-race? So right now, we don't have that for all sports. Right now, we have it for NFL. We have it for NBA. We have it for MLB, and we have it for golf. So those are the four sports that we have that functionality built out for. We do want to build it out for more sports in the future here. It just takes some time, and we are just knocking them out as we go here. So hopefully in the future, NASCAR will get the same functionality, but for now, we just have it for those four sports. All right. Looks like Sammy is typing a question here. That was our only question to get us started. So I'm going to wait for Sammy's question to come in here. And then I was thinking that we could do a demo here about how to build some MLB lineups for today. But in the meantime, question from Mark: is there a huge difference between doing a late swap or hitting the rebuild lineups button? Yeah, there's definitely a big difference here. So basically, if the slate has not started, I would never run a late swap. I would always just use the rebuild lineups button. So what happens with the rebuild lineups is that it doesn't look at the time the games start. It just acts as if all games are available and therefore all players are available if you use the rebuild lineup button, if this is just a normal build. If it is a late swap build, then the builder is checking, hey, what games have started? And if so, let's lock in those players. So that's another big difference between the two. Late swap also takes lineups that are already in your contest CSV and rebuilds those original lineups. So like what it does is it looks at a lineup and then returns iterations of the lineup as opposed to just doing brand new lineups. So it's trying to find different versions of an original lineup. So like if you're trying to use it pre-slate, well, that functionality might get a little twisted because no games have started, no players have started. So if you're pre-slate, always use a fresh build or use the rebuild lineup button. If the slate has started, that is the only time I would suggest using late swap. But good clarification. All right. Looks like Sammy's still typing here, so we'll let him get his question in. I'm going to start this MLB tutorial here, and then we'll wrap up with any questions that came in after the fact. So if I were building lineups for today's MLB slate, first thing I would do is go to the contest tab. I would also make you're playing. So I just threw one entry into this quarter jukebox here. That way I can bring in a CSV. Great. Another thing I can do quickly while I'm on the contest tab is if I'm on Ultimate, right click on the contest, use the add contest sim button, and then click save. So now that I got that going, I'm going to go to my build here, make two small adjustments, two projections, not looking to do anything crazy here. In general, I would recommend building the biggest pool that you can build here. I'm just going to build 500 lineups instead of 5,000 for the sake of time here. And then, one other thing that I would probably do here is I think the min salary is just a little bit high. Like I'm personally okay playing lower salary lineups. The reason it's high is because salary is typically correlated to projected points. So the builder's just trying to guarantee that you get better projected lineups on average here. I'm okay personally lowering this and letting the just giving the builder a little more freedom to do what it pleases. Not to say that it's going to give me a bunch of lower salary lineups, but if there's a situation where it finds lineup that is low salary, that is good according to the Sims, I'm okay playing it personally. And then the last thing I would do, go down to lineup rules, turn on the don't use batters against opposing pitchers rule. We definitely do not need to be doing that on a 12-game MLB slate. But other than that, I'm all set here. Going to kick off this build. And looks like Sammy's question came in. Let's just read this one while we wait for these lineups to come through. Question says, how come after I run a build, then contest sim, when doing the RAROI going from 20 to 3 and /or 1, the top rank changes from 1 to 3 to 4, for example? Shall I worry about that or just enter the contest as is? Thanks. It could depend. I ran this build with no adjustments and I'm getting the top lineups. Well, let's say that, you have some type of min or max exposure. Well, the builder might need to account for that by playing lineups that are lower in the pool. So what you could do here is close your my lineup. Be aware of any, minimax exposures, rules, filters, etc. Something that might be causing that to happen. But all right, so lineups are built. So first thing I would do once lineups are built, run your contest sim automatically. It's the first thing that you should do. And then what else I'm going to go do here is I want to make sure I can see the exposure, pool, and leverage columns, right? So I don't need all of these columns. Like I don't care too much for value. I'm going to move the adjusted ownership. I'm going to move the flagship ownership. That way I just see the my own. And then I'm going to scroll back. Where's my remember where you put those columns the next time that you load up an MLB slate. So if you're moving columns around, they should stay on a sport by sport basis here. But all right, contest sim is finished. I'm going to go to my sorting metrics, going to switch to the contest sim for the contest that I'm playing. And then in this instance, I only put in one entry, so no problems there. So going to go and put in one. And then I'm going to go to my exposure here, and I'm just going to kind of see what I'm getting. I think it's a good idea to kind of start with a little bit of like a zoomed out view here, just because we want to see like, hey, what is the builder recommending we play, right? So when I zoom out and look at 50 lineups, which is like the top 10% of the pool, well, hey, I'm getting a ton of Kevin Gausman, right? Which is actually really interesting because we're getting him in 90% of our top 50 lineups, but he's only in 29% of the pool. However, he's owned, his expected ownership is about 41%. So in our pool, we have negative leverage on Kevin Gausman, but in our top 50 lineups, we have a ton of positive leverage, right? So that's like a really interesting development for that I'm seeing here personally, right? So I'm making a note of that. Looks like we really like Cincinnati here on the road against the White Sox. And those are probably like my big two takeaways, right? We like Gausman, although I'm a little worried about him. And then we really like Cincinnati, right? So if I just come up here, look at like the team totals at the top, Cincinnati is the only team. Oh no, they're the highest projected run total team here, right? Another way you could do that is go to the team stacks tab, sort by projected. Now what I'm going to do is come into the team stacks, and then I want to sort by pool exposures. Like, hey, what other teams are coming up here highly that, are kind of a worthy mention, right? Mid 4 run total range here that, are coming up before like Atlanta, who has like a 5.2, right? So kind of interesting there to note these two teams, like, okay, St. Louis, the Angels, Kansas City, like kind of teams that I'm writing down here and making notes as I go along. So St. Louis, LAAA, KC. All right. So then next, what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to come down here and just look at like 10 lineups, maybe like the top 10, and then see what I'm getting. So, although we saw like a little bit of weird stuff with like Gausman, he's still coming up like a lot here in our top lineups. I think we're just going to eat him and play him. Pitchers are usually more likely to achieve their fantasy point outcome. You can see his distribution is closer to a bell-shaped curve. So I'm fine with Gausman here. We can see what other pitchers we're getting if we want to like start there, right? Really spread out the rest of the way, right? You're using 2 pitchers per lineup. The next highest exposure is 20%. So a pitcher is used in 2 lineups. So I'm not super concerned about who my second pitcher is going to be here. So now what I might do is go over to my team stacks and look in like these top 10 lineups, see what we're seeing. So still seeing a ton of Cincinnati, seeing some Washington, Oakland, really spread out, right? So what I might try to do here is get a situation where like, okay, I'm playing Cincinnati, but then maybe I'm also playing one of these other teams that I wrote down, like St. Louis, the Angels, Kansas City. So, this top lineup is like a Washington 5-stack, really interesting. It is my highest sim ROI lineup, but not really like falling in line with kind of what I want to see here. So I'm just kind of scrolling, seeing if something catches my eye. And this 6 lineup kind of catching my eye. It's a 5-stack of St. Louis with a Reds 3-stack. Okay. And, that's like the only lineup that really like kind of meets in the middle for a lot of the things I've seen. Like they all have Gausman. Okay. Like we know we're playing him. The pitchers were really spread out. We didn't really see anybody else popping in like the leverage or exposure column. So I'm kind of fine with whoever that second pitcher gets to be. We saw a ton of Reds. We saw some St. Louis, Angels, KC popping up here. There's only one lineup that is playing Kansas City, is playing the Reds and one of those other 3 teams here. And that's that 6th lineup. And then the interesting thing here is that it's actually big stacking St. Louis with a 5-stack and then doing a 3-stack of Cincinnati, right? So, and then our second pitcher here is Max Fried, who is a, well-known pitcher. This is a high salary lineup here. Pretty good projection at like 105, still positive sim ROI. So I would be completely happy playing this one lineup here. So I'm going to lock it in. And then I'm going to change the number of my lineups to 1 here. And then I'm going to save to my contest, going to hit save, going to download. And then I would take that lineup and go upload it to the fantasy site. So, if you're trying to build one lineup, you're trying to figure it out. What I recommend is like trying to find some just overall like characteristics of lineups that are grading out well in, a top portion of your pool based on your contest sim, and then just kind of go from there. So I'd be more than happy playing this 6th lineup here. So I hope you guys enjoyed that tutorial. All right, question from Steven. I know that SaberSim isn't huge on cash games, but will you show how you'd pick one of these lineups to throw into a 50-50 or similar? Curious whether ranking by percentile numbers help for that. Yeah, so if you're playing cash, so the reason that we really don't recommend cash is because, cash games still have rake, right? So not only do you have to beat the rake, but then you still have to win on top of that to make a profit. And with, projections being like really good across the industry, it gets harder and harder to beat cash over time. So we really feel like the biggest edges are in GPPs, but happy to build a cash lineup. So going to make 2 small adjustments to projections, switch my build mode to optimizer. So if I'm building cash, I'm definitely okay leaving the min salary at 49,000 here. I think that's totally fine. And then I'm just going to build 20 lineups, right? I'm trying to build, lineups that sacrifice as little projection as possible. One thing that we didn't talk about is the weather report, right? So, Kevin Roth runs his free weather dashboard over at Roto Grinders. You can check this out. I might try and make sure I'm like not playing any pitchers from like some of these weather games. So like Minnesota, Detroit, Pittsburgh, Philly, Milwaukee, Baltimore. Those weren't any pitchers that I remember popping up here. And so I'm not super concerned, but our top 20 lineups built here for cash. First thing I would do is change my sorting metric. Now, you can either use projected score or you could use percentile 50th. So typically in cash here, right, what you're trying to do is get across the cash line, which is like the top 50% of the field here. So that's why there's an argument for 50th percentile, or you could just use projected score. Either option is fine here. I think that these are actually the same exact lineup. Yeah, it looks like they're the same lineup. So either way, you're good there. And what I would do is just like make sure the lineup doesn't have any, red flags for you. You're going to see smaller stacks over here in cash in general, but I would be, trying to pick a lineup that doesn't really sacrifice any projected points here. So, I'd probably stay within like these top 10 lineups because they're all from like 111.5 to 111.1. So sacrificing as little projection as possible, making sure it makes sense to you. Kevin Gosman, we're playing him. We're getting like a 3 stack of the Reds here, which is like more than enough, playing their top 3 hitters, 1, 2, 3, and then getting, a bunch of one-offs toward the top of the lineup, where they're going to have a lot of chances to get additional at-bats, or probably something that you're looking for. So I would be more than happy playing this top lineup here, and that is what I would roll with for cash. But all right, looks like we're all caught up with questions here. Hope you guys enjoyed those tutorials. I will be right back here tomorrow, Saturday, for our next show, 11 a.m. Eastern. So until then, everybody, take care. Good luck. I'll see you all. Thanks. Bye.